Hello there, it's Mike.
And Katie.
And we are on episode 99. What are we talking about?
Today it's Hitchcock movies and more.
On This Week on Cup of Rad. Hey everybody, guess what, we're back. I don't know, that was Simpson-y, Borat-y, I don't know what that was.
Well, yeah.
That was something.
Borat.
Yeah, so we're in, well, because we saw the trailer for the new Borat film.
And then we stumbled upon Borat on TV.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what?
It was the scene where they were naked fighting.
Because, out of all the movies,
out of all the scenes
to stumble on, that was the one. Yeah,
flipping through channels, and it was like, hey, Borat's on. Oh my goodness.
It's so awkward and uncomfortable.
But hilarious. Uh-huh. But yeah, he's got their new movie. It's going to Amazon Prime the end of October here, the 23rd, I believe it said.
Yeah.
So it's not Halloweeny, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, because you know it's going to be good.
Was just enough of the right racy.
That's funny.
But yeah, so not a lot going along outside of things. Still waiting on those Thundercats.
It's getting closer, man.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's supposed to be this week.
Right.
I mean, that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. We'll see.
It's so long. It is such a wait.
But it's
a holy grail coming in the mail.
Right. 1 of 4.
Right. Let's focus on the positive of this. Another one shouldn't be the problem.
Right. So here we are. We're in October. It's October already.
It is.
It's October, and we're
all still alive.
Yeah.
I stumbled on that one. I don't know why.
You didn't think about that? Actually, Mike's dead.
He's just a ghost. Just spooky podcast.
So it's October. This technically would have been our 2-year anniversary episode.
Yeah.
But I didn't prepare for that. So
yay! Happy 2-year anniversary!
Maybe we'll talk more about that on the next one when it's our 100th episode.
Holy moly!
Which we haven't prepared for, but never, just forget that I said that, because why bother, right? It's a good time, right? It's a good time.
He's not being awkward at all tonight.
Not at all. So, okay, so it's spooky time. We've dived into a few things. We actually watched something that would be actually more considered horror. Mm-hmm. It was one that I've been wanting to watch, just never found the time for it. It was called Little Monsters. It's from just this past year. It was on Amazon Prime, Little Monsters. And it stars Lupita. I don't know her last name, but she was in Us. Mm-hmm. It is basically the story of a music singer, like a rock star that is down and out. We never was a rock star.
No, he was a wannabe rock star.
Yeah.
Whose life has fallen apart.
And he's got a nephew, and he goes on a field trip, and he's trying to hit on the teacher.
And he's just crass and just awkward and just he's a piece of work.
And you would think, when does the horror kick in, guys? This doesn't sound like a horror movie. It was a zombie movie.
Yeah. It
was kind of like a Shaun of the Dead. Not as quirky as Shaun of the Dead. Mm-hmm. Not as funny. But was a lot of fun.
Well, because they go off onto this like camp retreat, like farm type thing.
Yeah, it was an animal farm.
Sanctuary thing. And Josh Gad is in it. He plays a kid's entertainer who is just waiting to break. I
really wonder if it's how he feels about Olaf.
Yes, where it's like,
because that's all I could see.
I have to keep this great, bright and shiny personality out, but I just want to explode with vulgarity outside of that, right? And so there's a military base close by, and the zombie break has happened at this military break.
So they're in Australia, and below and hold, it's American zombies. Because they're in Australia. Yeah. And the base is an American base. So whatever the Americans are doing in Australia.
Oh well, that actually makes a lot of sense, unfortunately.
So the Americans let the zombies go. Yeah,
so then they
not
have
on
to purpose,
save
these children at this farm sanctuary, and literally everyone else gets turned into zombies around them. Yep. And it's a matter of trying to keep their heads cool, keep the kids safe, keep the kids from panicking.
Yeah.
You know, try and tell them it's a game and whatnot. And it is violent at certain times, for sure. And then of course the learning, the guy, which we can't remember his name.
What guy?
The main character, the
I don't know
washed up rock star. No. And
I want to say Doug, but I don't think it was.
I don't think it's Doug.
It just sounds like right. Doug. Sounds like a Doug. No offense to any Dougs that listen. It's just that just what I.
You know what? It's all Sam? I think of for is Thor.
Neil?
Sam Neill something.
Now I gotta look it up. You keep talking.
But him, you know, of course, finding his way and accepting from his past and learning and you know being kind of pushed into a situation to kind of open up and share with people, right?
Well, so. he ended up not marrying his longtime girlfriend because he wasn't
really available and he didn't want kids.
He didn't. Yeah. He just wanted to be part of Dave. He was a Dave.
Dave. Okay. He was a Dave.
Sorry, Dave. If we have any Dave fans, it just.
But yeah, it was a really good movie. Actually, I mean,
yeah, you know what? I really enjoyed it for what it was. Like, it didn't. Yeah, it was just a zombie romantic comedy.
Yeah,
but like with some of that quirky humor.
Yeah, it was actually quite feel good at the end.
Right.
You know, you felt really happy what they were able to do. But I mean, there was a lot of people that died.
Yeah.
In this movie,
what are we dealing with? Zombies. Fast moving or slow moving? Slow moving. Well, that's easy.
Yeah, they're totally practiced and
so that's like, how to deal with it. Wait a minute.
It's like, this again. Okay. You know, they have this whole procedure and protocol and they were going to nuke the place. And like Josh Gad,
he kind of steals the show for a bit because he's so foul and so vulgar.
It is, right? And you're just like, oh my goodness.
Because you can hear a little bit of Olaf once in a while when he does his like, he's a child entertainer. Yeah. He's like, McGiggle something?
Yes.
Teddy McGiggle, right?
I don't know why I said Chester.
Chester McGiggle? We don't know what we're talking about.
We're really prepared with names. As you can see, that was his high point in the movie.
But like he sits there and he literally is just like ragging about what he's done and
sex. He's drinking anything that has alcohol in it. I mean, like hand sanitizer, anything that could possibly have any sort of alcohol. He's hoarded and is drinking.
Well, when he's holed up in the gift store, right? And
he's
she shows
super selfish.
And she's like, you know, let us in. And he's like, yeah, no, fuck you. and then she's like, but
she's like, oh my goodness.
And then she's like, but I have kids. Yeah, I don't fucking care. This is my spot to hide. And it was just like, holy crap. And then later on when he's talking to me, like they get in a fist fight over it, like to the point where the guy nuts him and he vomits.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's trying to bond with him. And he's like, man, I've done a lot of things. I've fucked every kind of mom possible.
Well, because that's why he started doing it. Was like the only reason why was because all the moms he could fuck.
Right.
And all the kids. Now we've broken the explicit, so now we can just.
We
have to really convey to show his character.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right?
Like,
and that's the difference.
The movie itself, when it started, was actually quite harsh in the language because it shows.
Oh, and then there's
Dave and his girlfriend having a fight. It's like all these fights put together, and it's just them swearing at each other. Yeah, and at first, I was just like,
God, what have we done?
Wait, what? Where's the happy little lady teacher that was supposed to be singing in Zombies? Because that's what the trailer was,
right? Well, it's quite funny. It shows his inappropriateness for his nephew. Is he takes him in the middle of the night to go over to his ex's house. He dresses him up like Darth Vader, and he wants to, he's trying to get even basically and find some reason with her. He's just angry, right? Yeah. And he walks in on them having sex.
Yeah.
So then it's like this little kid standing there watching in a Vader costume, and it's just like, oh my goodness,
Mommy, a naked man beat up Uncle Dave. Why was he naked? Because she has a slutty vagina.
He's like 5 or something. They're in kindergarten.
Yeah, so, was it kindergarten, grade 1? Something like that. Like it was like that young of a
little kids, right? Yeah. So, but it turned around. It became very charming, actually, on for those other characters. And
when they were put in that extreme situation and have to like change their being and realize
her,
they have to stand
harden up a little bit and find, the things that really matter and are important. And it was really awesome, actually. So
yeah, I was
totally
quite happy we watched it. One little fact of trivia I'd found was that they wanted to use the Taylor Swift Shake It Off. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't get a hold of the people because it was a smaller film, right? And it wasn't until Lupita emailed her Taylor Swift directly, apparently. And it was like, this is why they want to use it, and this is where they want to use it, and blah, blah.
This is the purpose of the
So then Swift herself was granted licensing.
Because it's a very poignant use of the song in multiple areas.
They use it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, so it's really cool because it shows that progression, and it's really well used. It's not just,
and it's good for Dave's. It's Dave's character as well, right?
Yeah, so it's everyone. So it actually progresses the story along.
Yeah, it's
not
used.
Just in the background.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's not just a throwaway song in the back.
Yeah,
so which I thought was kind of cool to see, and then to see that that she was able to then talk to someone directly, like, and be like, no,
yeah, give it some
especially
and reasoning,
being a little film. So, but yeah, Little Monsters, it was on Amazon Prime. It was definitely a fun little, enough gore, enough, to kick off a little bit of the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. So then I finally got Katie to sit down to watch A Quiet Place.
Yes.
So
he's been talking about this forever,
because the second one only was supposed to come out in April, and then it was pushed to September, and now it's indefinite.
Now we're prepared when it ever shows up again.
If it ever shows up, because Bond was just delayed until April.
Yeah.
So, and now the idea that Regal Cinemas in the States might be going away. I'm really glad the company that bought Regal didn't buy our theater chain, because most likely we might be losing our chain then too, right? So yeah,
it's definitely scary to think about the concept of that,
right? As much as I know we've talked in the past, the idea of staying home and doing more movies because we were enjoying that, but just the fact that there's livelihood here for people. These are people's jobs, their lives. So
yeah, well, and at some point the film studios are going to have to make a decision to try if they don't provide the new movies, you're going to drive those theaters out of business. Yeah. So if you have to find a happy medium somewhere, because if we just keep delaying them, they don't have anything new to draw people to, and then they're just going to die out.
Well, unfortunately, the rumor mill is that there's a law that was being rolled back that theaters might be able to own, not theaters, film companies might be able to own theaters, and that might be part of all this.
So they're just waiting.
They're waiting until you go to a theater that's only Disney owned, and you're only gonna have Disney owned movies in that theater.
Oh yeah, that
or
seems
only Warner Brother movies, right?
Enough.
So it's like
wonderful.
We're gonna get how everyone loved drinking name brand beer, and it was just and then the craft beer showed up.
It's
basically like theaters, right? And you're gonna have everyone and their dog's gonna have. We
just had a bar and had everything, and now we have a
craft brewery
room just for them, right?
Yeah, tasting rooms and all that, right?
So now that's a good way to think about it, right?
That's what's gonna happen is you're just gonna have craft theaters with 6 seats in it, and they're gonna be like, "You're gonna like it," because we're fancy. We put mustache oil in our
fancy,
twirling mustaches.
Nice.
Monocles and shit like that.
So, back to the movie of The Quiet Place that we finally watched.
A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place. So, I didn't know what to expect from this. I just remembered that from before when you had talked about the fact that there was the whole purpose of it was they had to stay quiet and everything, and it was a really weird start to a film.
Yeah, it made you unnerved.
To not know what to be freaked out about, but it just jumps right into it, which I thought was really cool. That it didn't, and it was strange though, that it didn't give you the lead up as to what happened. Normally, something like this, you would see the downfall and the start of the monsters and how they got to where they were. And it was just nope.
Day 89.
You get right into it where most people are already dead. Monsters are already there. You don't know anything about them. You're just thrown into their world right now. And
before I forget.
Yeah.
But that opening scene, I didn't realize took place in 2020.
Yeah.
When you see the kid's grave later on, it has 2020 on it. I don't remember the date of it.
Because why not?
But I was like, well, okay, at least is there almost 90 days left in, I guess there is. But it was fall when that took place, so it's not telling the future, at least, hopefully. Now I've just doomed us all.
Yeah, now the scary ass monsters are going to show up.
Now we gotta be quiet.
They're exploding heads.
Shh. The podcast will now be silent for the next 2 hours.
So it was pretty like just trying to get a sense of how they would be having to exist like that without really making any sound and not being able to walk around with any shoes on of any sort too, and trying to keep children quiet. And oh my goodness.
So what do you think of that nail scene?
The nail scene? Oh, you're gonna jump all the way to that one?
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I don't know. You have a train of thought.
No, I'm just saying how horrific the starting of it was in that first part, where it's like the fact that everything's great. They got out of here, and then you see him steal his batteries. And you're like, something is gonna go horribly wrong, and it went horribly wrong, and it was so like, oh my god, giant ass scary 4-legged creature thing just killed their son.
Yeah,
and. Judgmental.
Great start for a movie, though.
It was.
Like for
judgmental mom was like, why the hell did they not take him out of the store and have, you have the dad in the front if you want to, and mom can take up the rear with that and make sure the kids are all out.
Yeah.
But you don't leave the small child who wants the toy like that to just assume he knows what to do.
Right.
But
I'm judging.
That's a really shitty situation, so I'm trying to lay back on the judgment. But that was intense. So then all of a sudden now it jumps ahead, right? And
475 or
something like that, right? And I just, the idea of how they live as you see them move about and make their plans and all the precautions they have to do.
Oh, I know we wouldn't be able to live like that. No. I know our own son couldn't live like that.
No.
Right?
No.
That idea that it's people take silence for granted.
Right?
And that idea that I doubt many people, that's why the world is empty.
Yeah.
Is because we take silence for granted.
Yeah. That idea of we don't realize how much noise we actually make on an everyday basis. And
how easy it is to make noise. Mm-hmm. Like just even the other day.
Well, we were talking about tremors and how the idea we don't realize how much sound will travel.
Yeah, right. But like the day I opened up the drawer to get a pan out, and all the lids shifted, and it scared the crap out of the cats, and they bolted and they wouldn't eat. Yeah. Right. And it's like, that was not even trying to make noise. That was just opening a drawer. Yep. Right. Yep. So thinking how easily, if there was a creature like that, it would just be.
Well, just the idea of ourselves with how much for making noise, but just our everyday movements around. We have no idea, even just the idea of a door squeaking. But we have those things where you have to remove.
And that's why they have no doors.
They have no doors to remove those places that are unnecessary noisemakers, right? And or the idea of them having to step on certain spots on the wall, on the wall. That would be creepy. Certain steps on the floor and the stairs. Yeah. Speaking of certain places to step on the stairs. Oh my God, the nail. As soon as that pulled up, I was like, no, this is going to be awful. And it has to happen at the most horrible time ever. Because you see her walking down the stairs and you just know what's coming. And it was so awful. Like I couldn't actually, I actually turned away. Yeah. And I couldn't see her pull her foot up. But the whole scene there with her, I mean, I can't imagine how strong of a person she had been. Like, incredible props. Like, I can't even explain.
That's a pretty intense scene
between giving birth. Her fear, going and having contractions, hurting her foot like this, all by herself, and then actually giving birth. Oh my God.
But then these creatures wandering around the house too.
Right? So yeah, that whole scene with her giving birth was just, oh my gosh. Yeah. And then, it just, the movie just went from bad to worse. It just got more and more depressing.
I love too. So what do you think? This movie's depressing. Yeah.
It was so cute though. I mean, if I go back a little bit though, with him bringing his son to the river, and it you can understand the poor kid's fear of making any sound. You know, it's been ingrained in him that he's not supposed to make any sound, and to have that freedom to find a place where you could actually talk again was, you know, you could see that anxiety melt off of him. Where there's still places where we can, you know, find a safe place, and it was like, oh, this is so wonderful, and again, it just went horribleness. Those creatures were terrifying,
aren't they?
Like the weird plated head things. And, so creepy.
But it's a good like thriller almost. It's not so much horror.
It was sad.
It's more of like
but it was very well done.
Terror.
It really made
survival horror, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it totally is because it still has that terror of things. It's still a monster chasing after you. And what's scary is it's a monster that is not just, you can't just say you're going to hide from it. You know, the idea that the extreme silence that you have to have. Yeah. And how terrifyingly fast it was and vicious. And then now you have so many different people and, you know, all these different problems, like the kids, okay, you know, everything was great. And then they get up on the silo and then they fall in and they have all these different things. And to see that thing rip through the walls of that silo like that. And it was so satisfying when the daughter's hearing aid was making its head vibrate and explode type thing, right? And that was just like, yes. And so I'm glad that, you know, as depressing and horrible as it was, at least there was that hope at the end where they found some sort of weapon against it, you know? And so at least it had
that's the one thing I did find funny with the movie. There still is kind of my little bit of the disappointment of it. Because the movie itself is so dark and like depressing and just like, you know, no hope feeling, the end feels almost a little too tongue in cheek. It reminds me it almost has like an Evil Dead moment. Like she just has that like Ash kind of like,
all right,
groovy, right? Pumps the shotgun, right? Yeah. And then cuts to black, right? Like it's just kind of that switch.
Well, because you figure you killed one. I get it. But you still have a brand new baby. Mm-hmm. You have in a box. Your house is destroyed. Yeah. And you also don't have someone to go out to you have one less person to protect, to help out the kids, and to go out and get food. Yeah. You know, he was a gathering. He would maintenance things. She was obviously a very strong woman, but if she didn't have the newborn baby,
it'd be fine.
She'd be in a much better situation. She'd be able to take care of all that stuff. But having that kid, because, oh my God, as soon as I saw that she was pregnant, I was like, holy shit, this is not going to go well. Like, I can't even begin to fathom, like. Yeah. Oh. So yeah, but I'm glad we got to see it finally. I can see why you really enjoyed it. Yeah. And it was very well done for sure. So yeah.
You look forward to when the sequel, if it ever comes out.
If it ever comes out, I'm sure it'll be interesting.
I'm curious because the trailers have shown that you might actually find out stuff that happened before, like the actual incident.
Now you find more.
So I hope that it doesn't ruin it too much. Because
is it Krasinski? Yeah. Is he still in charge of it? Yeah. Okay.
So
it should hopefully then have the same.
Yeah, and then he's not acting in it too much, as far as I know. So then,
unless he does flashbacks, and that's why he did flashbacks, so he could still
be in it.
Yeah. I go back to when I was alive. Oh yeah. But yeah, that was heartbreaking for sure.
Quiet Place. It's still a fun monster, and it's a survival horror.
Yeah, definitely makes you think enough about taking what we do have for granted. Yeah, as well, right. That
so try spending a day being silent.
It's that same the concept of, we think about, say, wanting a freedom of something, and freedom can be applied in so many different tones, and that's one of those places where we have the freedom to make noise. Yeah. We have the freedom to exist without fear of that, and it's just one more thing to be thankful for that, right? So
check out A Quiet Place.
So it's time.
It's the main feature. So we're diving into some classics. We're sticking to some of those. If Universal ever wants to throw us a bone, because all our horror movies these last couple episodes have been Universal Pictures. Yes. So, Universal Studios, what up? Because we know you're listening.
But we thought we'd introduce Kiddo to some classics.
Yeah, because that's what we've been trying to do. We're trying to find some stuff so we can watch with him, because he's not there yet for full-on horror.
And then as we kind of get into the spirit of the season with that too, kind of some lighter stuff, which helps to look at things that we can watch with him, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we, because we last year we did Dracula and Frankenstein, and this year we did Wolfman too last year. So this year we did a couple Hitchcock films, two of his more horror ones, because most of his stuff is usually thrillers. And we decided to jump into
Psycho. And I have not seen that movie in its full entirety for quite some time, actually. So it was fun being able to watch it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And really see that buildup of the story itself. And I hadn't seen the beginning in a really long time, like to the point where I don't really remember it, right? Yeah. It's amazing how much you associate the murder scene and then kind of the end. And then you're just like, yeah, whatever. You just fill it in.
That's it.
And it's everything. And there's so much more to the story than what those key scenes are, right?
Yeah. So what you gotta look at too is like, okay, so at the beginning, Marion is in white lingerie. Right, so that's so poignant.
Funny. We start the thing off too, and it's a sex scene, basically.
Yeah, that was like, I totally forgot about that.
Awesome way to start this.
Like,
Kiddo's looking over and like
1960s sex scene.
I know, right? What are we watching, guys?
They're just kissing. I thought this was a horror movie.
Anyways, white lingerie.
You look and you see this white lingerie. Yes, she's having a sordid affair of some sort.
It's not an affair. It's just a secret love relationship.
Yeah, but that still, it would be an affair.
Afternoon delights.
Back Sky rockets in flight.
You sang it.
Afternoon delight. Ooh.
Thank you, Anchorman.
Afternoon delight. But yeah, she's in white lingerie, and then after she decides to steal the money, she's in black lingerie.
Yeah, as she's packing and everything, she gets dressed into that. And,
right.
I think that's something that's like that, right?
The seat, because that's ways that Hitchcock was able to then give you the tone of how things have changed within it, right?
I like how you made a comment that, as she's driving and you just hear all of the other people involved talking over her drive. And, is it the idea of, this is the stuff that's actually happening? Or is it just what she's imagining? Voice. Yeah. And what she thinks is going on? Or is it a little bit of both? Or, no one really knows exactly.
Yeah. And I like that because it leaves it up to your own devices of like, well, what do you think is happening? Am I giving you the monologue of everything when they realize the money is stolen? Or is it her own conscience eating away as she's driving? I thought
it was interesting at first that, you don't really get that sense because it happens so quickly. You don't have a character development. No. And then as soon as you can tell that something is a little bit off, it's almost a little bit out of left field.
Yeah.
She wasn't really happy with the relationship the lack of public relationship she was having. And you knew that he had problems with money. And it's just like, whoa, wait, what? She's doing this? Like, I would have had no idea.
Yeah.
And it definitely takes a different turn, right?
So. Yeah. So, okay, so here's something I thought was kind of fun. It was $40,000, and you could tell that it was from a very affluent person that was going to be buying his daughter a home, and it was like a big deal. Like, they were like, holy crap, this is a lot of money. We can't have this money here. So I looked it up, and it's only inflation-wise $300,000, which wouldn't even buy you an apartment in our town.
Yeah.
So, like, that shows you how messed up inflation is. Because, like, if you were like, you took $300,000 into a place to buy a house, they'd be like,
oh, yeah, go good.
You poor people.
You have a down payment.
Yeah. But like, this was like $40,000 to buy a house, and you could tell that this guy, he was buying it to make his little girl happy on her wedding day.
Yeah, like, it was a huge thing. Right?
It was a big deal. Like, so in these years, there hasn't.
It's just,
it hurts my head to think of how off kilter
wages and
land is, right? Because you would think that, I was like, at first I was like, oh, it should be like close to like $1 million. And I looked it up. I was like, no, it's only 300,000.
Oh my goodness. Right. But yeah, I like, it's interesting to see how, she's trying so hard to come across as, not guilty, say when the police stops her, but by doing so, how much she was kind
More
of
guilty.
backing herself into the corner with it, right? And how she...
Because she didn't have a plan. That was a problem. Like she, if she had thought about it, she could have said she was like running from,
give a reason. Yeah, exactly. Why she's trying to run away and seems in a hurry, right?
Yeah. I need to get to... Well, it didn't make sense.
Not saying we want to try to like give her reasons and excuses to be okay with it, but it's just like you can see how completely
it was just fly by night idea.
Yeah, and she put herself in a situation where you didn't expect it to be, of course, a problem at all. And you wouldn't have known because Bates seems like such a nice guy, and but definitely turned for worse, right? So
yeah, well, then she eventually gets to the motel like an hour into the movie.
Yeah, right. And so after the murder scene, Kiddo was, because he was funny because we were talking about, he's seen, of course, the movie set at Universal.
Yeah, and he's seen in that the stunt show thing that we saw, the effect show.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff,
things, right?
And so you see this, and he's like, well, Bates is talking about his mom. Well, isn't his mom dead? And we're like, what are you talking about?
How do you know that?
How do you know this stuff? He talked, and he's like, oh, I remember, seeing it on at the Universal backlot, and it was just this corpse. And I'm like, oh crap, we can't really.
Well, because it was on the video too, because they played that Halloween horror movie thing.
Yeah. So we're like, maybe she's not dead yet.
Yeah.
Like trying to find ways to make it so he's at least questioning it a little bit, right? And but he figured out some of that stuff, and but we did enough to at least him not know exactly what was going on, right? But then after the actual murder scene, he was like, "She's already dead. Like, what about the rest of the movie?" You can tell that that it was additional stuff like that. The actual mystery, and of course more deaths.
Well, he was surprised at how fast she died.
Yeah, it was just like that's it type thing.
Yeah. Well, because it's crazy to think that the movie was rated R when it came out, and people thought the movie was despicable, and and it started a bit of the feud between Disney and Universal.
1960, and shows how much the world has changed then. With that.
Yeah, right. And
well, yeah,
even in that short time when they started, after this hit, being this was the first ever slasher flick, but. So much in the horror genre changed so fast in those short years.
It was oh yeah, people really do want this stuff.
Neither the Return of the Living Dead was only 8 years later, right? Yeah. And that blew the roof off with zombie movies, and just then B movie companies and all these things hit with such ferocity. Yeah. Right. And it's just funny to think Hitchcock wanted to film something at Disneyland, and Disney wouldn't allow it because of the despicable movie he made, citing it being Psycho. Right. Yeah. So it was just funny to think of, all this stuff.
Well, because it touched on mental illness. It touched on trauma. It touched on, the idea of sex in it, murder, sex in it, stealing, all sorts of stuff, right? Yeah. So there was a lot in it for a commentary on human behavior and, chance of things too, and how you find yourself in a situation due to a whole bunch of choices, right? Yeah. And it was. I think it was. It was interesting because Kiddo kind of got into it a little bit more after that, where it's now what is he going to do? He looks like he's done this before. Yeah, right. Something is wrong, and either his mom's been killing people, repeatedly, and this isn't the first time,
or he's cleaned it up.
He starts getting real suspicious, which is he knew that something was weird, right? Yeah. So.
One thing that's interesting with Psycho is the fact that how much music plays a part in the movie. There's pretty much really no scene in the movie that doesn't have some kind of music in it. Yeah. And it's all strings. Yes. There's no other instruments involved. It's just strings. Yeah. The composer... The
music is so iconic for it, right? As well, right?
And the composer's salary was doubled because of the effort that he put into the music by Hitchcock. The shower scene was never supposed to have music. And he scored it just because he felt that it needed something, and then it was showing, and now it's the most iconic music ever to that scene, right? Yeah. So, which is I thought was interesting.
Yeah. What's interesting too with that scene is because of he's obviously still horrific, but to think about now, if you had that same scene, how much more blood there would be.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, you would see the knife actually going in.
Yeah, well, how little blood there actually really was for how relatively quickly she died. Yeah, right? You know that there would have been a lot more.
Oh yeah, everywhere, and that was scandalous. Like that was
exactly,
and it was filmed in black and white to try. It was written because color movies were already available. Mm-hmm. It was filmed in black and white to try to pull back on the horrificness of it.
Yeah, because if you don't have the red aspect, right? Yeah.
And it was just like, that's crazy to think of. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't that much. It's not like you saw slashes on the skin.
Yeah.
You didn't see knives going in or anything, right? Mm-hmm. It was a body double. It wasn't actually her body that you do see.
Oh, okay.
It was actually a Playmate's.
Oh.
So.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that as well, right?
Yeah.
Because of all, so much skin was actually shown relatively, right? So you had said the Perkins, his role too, was originally meant to be played by someone else.
Yeah, it was written, the role was written in a way and it was directed in a way that it was supposed to be for Jimmy Stewart, but he was advised not to. Because of past problems with Hitchcock on Vertigo, because Vertigo wasn't a success, and Hitchcock blamed him for it. That's why Cary Grant got the role in North by Northwest. But then they were like, well, North by Northwest did well, but didn't do as well as he wanted. So then he was looking to try to get him to come back. It seemed like they patched. I read they seemed to patch things up because there was a couple of scenes that Stewart had said you should leave or cut because originally
so helped out with it.
Yeah, but yeah, if you watch the movie and listen to how Perkins delivers his lines, you could throw Jimmy Stewart in there easy, and it's kind of, when you know that, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, because as soon as you said it, you're like, who does he sound like? And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Jimmy Stewart for sure.
Yeah,
like it totally would be.
Yeah, and it's probably like Stewart didn't go on to do too much more after that, but Perkins really did nothing. His career was this was like the beginning of that typecast where like you get in a horror movie and you become a movie monster, and that's all he was. He did like 5 Psycho movies or something like that.
Just becomes creepy then.
Yeah, right.
So, okay. So he was in more as Norman Bates?
Yeah, they did. Universal tried to milk it.
Oh,
and they tried to make other ones. Yeah, they made some other ones.
You're like, we do not speak of those.
Yeah, no, we don't go anywhere with those ones. Yeah. That's why I was surprised that Vince Vaughn went off to have a career after he made the remake.
Oh, that was his really like early on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, then when you saw that trailer.
But then he got into more comedy. Comedy. That's what saved his career, right?
It's off killer with that. I think it's funny. There was a few times I think he had made some sort of comment about, where is the detective or something like that, and he was like, oh well, he didn't expect, he's in the bog. You know what? Like, he didn't. You're not gonna find him. He's over here. Like, it's just he really paid attention and got into it.
Yeah,
it was impressive to see.
This is a long movie. It's like 2 hours.
Yeah,
right?
it's a dramatic movie.
Yeah, it's definitely not so much of your typical horror.
No,
right? It's.
But it's good to see that build up of things. Yeah, right. And so I would like to instill in him the appreciation for the genre in its entirety. Yeah, not just one type of subgenre. Right. So
Kiddo liked it. He said it was pretty interesting. He definitely didn't find it that scary.
No, and he understood what the recap at the end really helps him, and he understood what was going on. Yeah. But he definitely found it creepy for what it was, right? But yeah, it wasn't like horror filled. Yeah. There was only 1 or 2 times where he kind of grabbed onto my arm a little bit more. It was
like the mother, wasn't it?
But yeah, mainly he could tell when something was going to happen.
Because of the music.
Yep. Right? So
Psycho is 60 years old.
Yes, it is.
60 years old. So look at that. We're doing a movie, a Radnesia, on an anniversary year. Oh. And I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, look at that.
So, that's old. Yeah. Like, some people don't even live that long.
Yeah, it is pretty intense to realize how old that really is. And it's cool, like we were telling Kiddo too, because we've actually gotten to, walk through the hotel parking lot at Hollywood Horror Nights in the back lot, and we've stood on the porch that is the the current standing Bates house, and got to meet an actor playing Norman Bates and everything, which was.
And he's seen like that during the non-Halloween season when it's not used as a tear tram. He was on the tour that we went on when Bates came out and was putting a body in the trunk and came at the.
Oh yeah, because
that's how he remembers all that, right? So
yes.
So it's kind of cool. It's a great piece of history, especially for Universal Pictures, even though it was mainly produced by Paramount, but it's become a Universal picture because I don't know why. It's filmed mainly on Universal's backlot.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to see the different. You're like, oh, I recognize that backlot.
So, but it's a classic. It's a classic intro to slasher flicks.
Yeah.
So.
There was another. You said another thing was the detective's name. Was it the detective in there?
Loomis.
Loomis, yes.
No, Sam Loomis. Yes.
That was where the Sam was.
Yeah. Yeah, there's where Sam was. There you go. Bring it back. Watching too many movies, apparently. Sam Loomis. John Carpenter made Halloween because he loved Psycho so much. And so he named the doctor after Loomis.
Yeah. So I thought there was a cool tie-in for something to show such an iconic slasher film later on.
Yeah. Because that really, original, as much as like, because a lot of people don't see Psycho as like a slasher, as a horror movie, right? It is a Hitchcock film, but it inspired Halloween, which was really the major start of every slasher movie that we know today.
Yeah.
It was the reason why we got, all the Michael Myers films. Which then, is the reason why we got the Jason films and even the Freddy films, because they all saw the niche they needed for a monster.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was really cool to see that nod to it there. And so it's that proof that, if you see something that was, you never realize what it will inspire in the future, right?
So who knows what movies will inspire a kid to decide to make something, or a young adult, or whatever you are, whatever you call yourself, to make something, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that idea that if we had never had that film, we might never have had Halloween.
Yeah.
Right. We may never have had. Apparently, we've got construction in the place.
So sorry if there's extra noise.
But we may not have gotten that, and who knows what it could be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For some people, they might be like, damn, Hitchcock and all this, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah. So, we did two Hitchcock movies this week.
We went in for another one, a different style of his movies, and we watched The Birds.
The Birds, just another Universal picture. This is why I say Universal, please. Send us the money bags.
So The Birds is something that I have known about, and I know I have seen, but again...
Outside, in the trees.
Hey, shut your face. The movie The Birds, I don't really recall ever seeing it from start to end. I remember bits and pieces of it. Again, I don't know how much of the actual backup story. I know Psycho I had watched, but The Birds, I'm not really sure if I've actually seen a lot of that build up to the actual story.
You probably saw more of it when we went to Universal and saw the little like horror movie clips.
Probably, right? Where like some of that stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I know about this scene.
Right?
Because I learned about it
on the Hollywood Backlot tour.
Right? Oh, my history is based on that.
Right.
So. It was another one of those ones where it definitely like, okay, well, we're gonna kind of get into this story. Like,
The Birds is a long movie.
It's a long movie. It's 2 hours long, longer than Psycho. And there is a lot to get into it, a lot of character development. And at first, she was kind of, I didn't quite know what to think of her. Like what is she doing? What is the purpose of what is going on right now?
Yeah.
And you're just gonna have to go with it and see how it turns out, And then once everything starts happening with The Birds, it happens pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then you just start getting all sorts of like creepy, like this is why we don't like big flocks of birds. Like there is something unnerving about them, right? And this is not helping anything, especially because we have like big trees around that have crows in them that get into fights and make all sorts of noise. And it'll be interesting the next time that happens and see how Kiddo reacts.
So this one freaked him out. This one actually freaked him out. But it's also color, and it actually showed blood. Yes, there was definitely some pretty horrific things where his mouth just dropped. Yeah. Now, one thing, too, that must be noted is that Psycho, where there's like pretty much no scene that doesn't have some kind of music in it, whereas The Birds, there is no music. Yes. It is just bird sounds. Yeah. Really weird bird sounds. Yeah. It's the every possible sound a bird can make, from its wings to its beak. Yeah. And it was done on purpose so that you could really feel that that feeling, right? Yeah. Those. Well, there's just a feeling of being surrounded by them, right? So yeah. So that was one thing that was interesting, because going from one night watching a movie where it's all music to now silence, like moments where there's like pure silence in the film. Yeah. And then you just start hearing the squawks of the birds. Yeah. And you're like, right. And they would just show up in it was because some of those scenes where it was like you look and there's 5, and then you look away and you come back. And I love 10. That scene when she's sitting there outside the schoolhouse and it cuts to her, she's smoking, and then it cuts to the playground and there's a couple birds, and then it goes back to her smoking, it cuts to the playground, and then there's like 20 birds. Yeah. Then it's just covered, right? I thought it was funny when I was like, yeah, kiddo, there's a playground. He's like, what? That just looks like a bunch of bars. He's like, what do you do on that? You climb it and swing around on it? To your death? Oh, that's funny. And, but yeah, it was definitely, scary to think about, especially the sparrows when they all come in the house there. Through the fireplace. It was quite funny too, because it's scary, but then I'm also laughing at the film aspect of it with this, how old it is, the old and the layers of the cells and the CG, almost obviously not CG, but animation aspect of it. And then some of the birds are black and white looking. Yeah. And that was because it was all done with animatic cells and stuff like that. Yeah. Like they put stuff, it was layered, right? And again, I'm really sorry for all this background construction noise. I don't know what is happening. It is way later than we expected. Yeah, we record at night, and I assume our neighbor is drilling into the wall now. Yeah, so I apologize about the noise. But yeah, so it's, they had to think of a different way to be able to have that many birds. You couldn't just release 300 bird sparrows into a room with all these actors. No, right? So, but yeah, I've had a bird inside a small enclosed space at my work when I was a teenager, and that freaked me out. Yeah. That's it. That was all I needed to be freaked out about the idea of something. And so I cannot imagine the idea of multiple birds inside there. And then when she goes over and finds the farmer, you see all this stuff. That's actually a pretty horrific scene. That is horrific. And when she actually sees him with his eyes all pecked out, holy cow, kiddo's face, he was just like, oh! Because that's probably been the most horrific thing he's seen. Yeah. Right? Especially because it's bloody. Like the Mummy, it's not bloody. Yeah. Right? It just, But yeah, this was destroyed. Birds, carcasses everywhere. Carcasses everywhere, killed and hanging out the windows. Yeah. And this dead man with his eyes all bloody sockets. And yeah, that was pretty disturbing. Yeah. So this has definitely stepped up on the horror aspect for things, right? Yeah. And then, yeah, we got to see the town explode and people burning and getting pecked at and destroyed. And it was mass chaos for sure. Right. Well, this shows how much people didn't believe, and then how easy it is. That was the thing that I like about that scene, when the bird attacks the gas attendant and knocks him out, and he drops the gas pump, the hose there. It led to something so much worse, right? And then that guy just drops his match and they blows up the car, and just chain reaction, right? Mm-hmm. One thing that was fun too is when we were watching the town, is how much the town was the Universal backlot. Yeah, it was the old Western town just with modern signs put on it, which I thought was hilarious to see. It's so impressive what they can do with those lots, right? Which was just so wild, and that's something that with watching both these movies, was seeing how much back to that practicalness, so much practical stuff, and it's amazing just how charming films are that are as practical as possible. Yeah. Even with say Little Monsters, there was like no CG in that movie. It was all just practical effects. Yeah, right.
Well, because the zombies themselves were just kind of makeup and grotesque, but there wasn't anything crazy about them that needed to be CG or anything.
Exactly, right? Which was really cool. So then, like, as you go through the movie, you got bird attack after bird attack, and finally they decide that they're gonna just leave because they boarded up their house and everything.
It's amazing how many places he had to put boards,
right?
Like all the different openings that you don't even think about,
right? And then the main character there, she gets attacked, and then they're gonna leave, and it really freaked Kiddo out because when he opened up the door and all you saw was all these birds everywhere, everywhere. But it was the wind, because it was the lack of sound. Yeah. That wind, that just that blowing that they intensified. It
was all calm except for the birds, right?
Right. Yeah. And then you'd have a few bird sounds as he's walking through. And then when they finally get to the car and they leave, Kiddo was just, and the movie ends. Yeah. As they drive off. Well, into
all the
distance.
Waiting, between that and then before the attacks, and all of them just sitting around and waiting for something, and just waiting for a squawk or a smack from a bird to run into something, right. And then it just happens so quickly.
When the birds are pecking through the doors in that one scene.
Well, and then but the scariest part was after the initial attack was gone and they survived all of that, and then when she hears the one bird flap, and Kiddo was just like, no. Don't go towards it. Just stop. Don't go find it. Yep. You don't need to find it. It's okay. And then she opens up the door and he was just like, don't go in. Right.
That's like me and like mice. Like if I hear a sound, I have to find out where it's coming from. Yeah. Like,
yeah. So and then we're just going to be, don't be like the birds.
Yeah. Well, if mice are falling from the ceiling, I'm out. I'm lighting that place on fire. I don't care if I lose my stuff.
So now I get to tell my personal bird story. I'm so excited. Okay, so when I was younger, this is my connection to the birds. So it's so funny is I think of this more than like the movie itself, which is just so funny. But I was younger, and I remember one afternoon I was practicing my clarinet actually, and I heard all this noise outside, and these like what sounded like a gathering of birds. We only had a small tree outside, so no big place for a lot of birds to gather. And so I go to the front door, and we had a screen door, and I look outside, and the whole freaking lawn is covered in either crows or blackbirds. I'm honestly not quite sure. One of those. Yes.
That old lady would have told you.
The old lady would have totally told me which bird it was. But the whole lawn was black with birds. And I was just like, holy crap. This is terrifying. And all I could hear was that it was very, very calm. Yeah. But I have no idea why there was that many birds, because I don't remember my dad like putting seed down or anything on the grass. Something must have
days like that when you wish cell phones were around, right?
Right, where I wish I'd been able to take a picture and being like, oh my goodness, someone else needs to see this, right? Well, then I still had my clarinet in my hand, and I moved it a little bit, and I hit the metal screen door with the bottom of the clarinet. Oh my goodness. This like flock of birds took off in one gigantic like instant, right? And the sound and the air from that thing, it was terrifying. And I was just in shock. I was like, I cannot believe this. I've never seen so many birds. Yeah. And they were just like perfectly all on there, all calm. And it was like on the ground. Like, this is weird. I never saw that again. But that was my birds experience. Luckily, very safe, away from the terrifying birds. And they did not attack me when I made a sound. So that was a bonus. But yeah, that was something I wish that I had, the video proof of it, right? So...
I don't know, because something like that is just spectacularly strange.
Right? Like, it's one thing for them to gather on the rooftops or the trees around us, right? But to be on the ground like that, it's just weird. So,
but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, Hitchcock made people afraid of showers. Mm-hmm. He made people very afraid of flocks of birds. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it too, you watch the birds and you see how similar similarities there is to even Jaws, just with how some of the scenes, some of the scenes play out and all that. But then you have to realize too that The Birds is based on a short story as well.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Right. And you know what's funny? So this is not as cool as A Flock of Birds, you know. But I remember my grandfather loved Hitchcock movies, so he showed me a lot of them. When I was grade 8, we had to read the short story. And here I am having watched The Birds and being like, you know, I know the story. The short story is nothing like the movie. Mm-hmm. It's loosely based. The whole short story basically takes place in an attic, right? And it's a survival,
and that's it,
right? Well, it's a survival thing. Like there's some lead up to it and all that, but they. Well,
I'm just saying that the idea, the basis of it, right?
Yeah,
it's just the concept.
And that was one of the things where I was like, you know what, that would be a cool movie on its own. Like the idea where it's just this family has to hole up in their house and not a lot of interaction with other people, and it's just them trying to survive the night in their house as it's getting torn apart by the birds, right? I still think I don't think Psycho doesn't need to be remade. I'm not a big fan of remakes, but I think The Birds is one that probably could be remade.
Yeah,
only because it's a movie that definitely could benefit from new technology. Because
well, especially with all the bird aspect of better animation for things.
Yeah.
And better the CG.
If you put the money into it, and you could definitely make it look really amazing. And there's also the idea that with the ending that it has, you could possibly even make a movie that doesn't say remake that movie. It could just be... I'm a big fan of making things like spin-offs. I think spin-offs could definitely work.
Just make whatever weird thing happen, move to a different town.
Well, they said it was already taking place in like 3 other towns. We went at the end of the movie and they didn't know how far it was going. So
I love that there was no explanation for it.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that something's like it would be a natural phenomenon. We have no idea what would have caused that.
Yeah.
You know, something was upset in the balance of the world that was causing an issue. We assume, because the way egotistical humans as we are, we assume it's something we have done.
Yeah.
But it could have just been something with the earth itself. You know, it could have been us causing something in the earth, but still, you know, something was throwing them off. Right? Yeah. And I like that there's no explanation. And that's what makes it almost scarier, is like that we don't know what we did to cause it. So how can we prevent it? Yeah. You know, there is nothing we could have done. Right. And that's freaky for sure.
Totally. So. Didn't mention too the schoolhouse that they
I was just gonna say
bodega, the schoolhouse, which is now actually a residence. It was said to be haunted, and that was one of the reasons why Hitchcock was so excited to film there.
So he knew it was haunted and purposely went there for it.
Yeah, right. And I was like, ooh. The cast had said that they felt that even though the room was pretty empty, it always felt full. And some had said that they heard like the laughter of children, even when there was no children on set. So that idea but then someone turned it into a house and they lived there. So
maybe they got it cleansed.
But it's kind of creepy. Yeah. Like it looked like more like an old church than it was like schoolhouse thing. Like I would not live there. Yeah. Like, yeah. But apparently
$3 million too.
Probably the people that live there aren't really nice because they're like mad that people are trying to come take photos of the bodega schoolhouse. Yeah. Like, well, A, it was a Hitchcock movie, and B, it's supposed to be haunted. You're going to get people.
Yeah. What did you expect, right? Like,
but you know what? I love the Hitchcock movies. I think they're great, you know, beginner horror movies, just because they're thinkers and they you know, they just kind of set the genre up, because if it hadn't been for a couple of those films, we wouldn't see, you know, like The Birds is also kind of like that man versus beast, man versus nature. It's even another survivalist.
Well, again, horror, you say right? for Jaws, right? I mean, we all love Jaws, but we see that as more as a monster. Yeah. But again, with Jaws, we don't know what caused him to suddenly be attacking more.
Isn't it her?
Sorry, it to attack more, right? And so not, you know, the idea of the lack of control for something is a scary thing for us, right?
Yeah, so, totally.
And birds can be terrifying. So sharp, pointy beaks.
Well, they descended from dinosaurs. Yeah, so
just tiny raptors flying around the sky.
Yep. But yeah, definitely check this out. We found ours. Ours was just on our from our cable provider, and it was free.
Yeah.
So definitely something to look for. Looking at some of those classics and seeing where some of these things come from.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's been kind of fun, is being able to show Kiddo this. Like, we're kind of stalled on what to show him next. So for 100th, we might have to just go full adult.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I've been kind of wanting to do some old Peter Jackson movies.
Well, he wants to dig into his Animal Crossing Halloween stuff going on. So maybe he's just like, sure, watch your movies. I'm going to go play Halloween, right?
But yeah, I want to dig into those old Peter Jackson ones. Yeah. Dead Alive and Bad Taste, or Brain Dead.
Yeah, we got some of those weird ones there. So
we got to get into some splatter gore, some just some.
I think we're in a mood for some weird stuff this year, right?
Yes.
So we've had our kind of usual, classic Halloween movies, but some kind of weird offbeat ones, I think. So that's
because last year we touched on some more like Halloween and stuff like that. So we definitely want to make sure we hit up some.
So if you have any more like suggestions or ideas for things,
maybe we actually finished Saw.
Well, we're not too far off, but yeah,
I think we watched 3. We're like, that's enough.
Yeah, we're good.
We'll find something. We'll find something for the 100th episode.
Yeah.
We thank you all for coming. It's great to be in your ear holes. It's a little classic-y time for you. Sorry again for the drills.
Oh, it's just getting bad again.
Yeah, we're getting drilled on. So we're gonna peace out. Stay rad, dudes.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening. Want more rad content? Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review.
And remember, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes!